Plato versus Buddha, the Globalized project by Ben, Troy, and Bailey. Both Plato and Buddha have their ideas about reincarnation, and they turn out to be quite similar. Their ideas about the purpose of life, however, is where they differ. In this presentation, we will explore these ideas and compare and contrast them along the way.
Buddha was born in 563 BC as a prince in India. He was sheltered and gifted luxuries by his father so that he could never even want to leave his home. One day, the man who was destined to become Buddha, Siddhartha Gautama, left the palace walls and came across an old man, a diseased man, and a dead man. This was the beginning of Buddha's quest to contemplate and meditate over life's suffering and how to reach the end of it, enlightenment.
Plato is a renowned Greek philosopher who lived from 427 to 347 BC. He was most famous for his philosophical views in a series of dialogues made in light of Socrates and his teachings. Plato also established the world's first university, named the Academy.
Reincarnation is the idea that one's essence is passed on through a cycle of lifetimes. Though their ideas weren't totally identical, Plato and Buddha both believed in reincarnation.
To begin with Buddha's idea of reincarnation, in one word, would be samsara. This means a repeated cycle of death and rebirth. Everything is suffering, according to Buddha. Birth, death, and life in between. Samsara is a painful process that represents reincarnation. It involves repeated cycles of death and rebirth, and the one root cause of the suffering, or dukkha, is that we are ignorant to the fact that we are in control of our own fate through karma. How do you picture reincarnation? Unlike a popular idea that we have a soul that wakes up in a new body every time our last body takes its last breath, Buddhism believes that there is no soul at all, as described by the term anatta, which essentially means non-self. Rebirth into a new life would be a reforming of personality fragments, kind of like the candle analogy in the textbook Living Philosophy. Reincarnation is like a flame from a candle being passed to another candle. It is not the same flame, but the essence and cause of the second is created from the first. In the old movie Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, there is a scene where Mike TV gets pulled apart into itty-bitty fragments and formed again, only smaller. Buddhists believe in reincarnation that is similar to this. If Mike's body represents our personality, and how big he reforms is the effect of karma on his outcome. Nirvana, the end of all suffering, as I will explain later in the Purpose of Life segment, through the understanding of the Four Noble Truths and by following the Eightfold Path, most people consider this state to be tranquil and heaven-like. It is the end of the samsara cycle and the ultimate goal, which is enlightenment.
Plato also believed in reincarnation. Although he does not specifically talk about reincarnation, there is evidence that implies his belief in the concept. According to Plato, we are born with innate knowledge, or a priori knowledge. And since he believed that the soul was immortal, this would indicate that knowledge was descended from previous lives. To express his concept of innate knowledge, Plato uses Socrates' dialogue of the unschooled slave boy and the geometry problem. In the dialogue, Socrates is teaching the unschooled slave boy geometry using only a series of questions. In the end, the boy comes to the right answer on his own, thus supporting Plato's idea of innate knowledge. Plato also suggests that accessing this knowledge is a matter of using reason to recall what we previously knew in another life, which further supports the idea of reincarnation.
Most philosophers have an opinion about the purpose of life. Why were we all put here? What purpose do we serve? What are we meant to achieve? Plato and Buddha both have their own answers to these questions.
The purpose of life, or more accurately stated, purpose of lives, For Buddha is to reach nirvana, or enlightenment, through following the Eightfold Path and understanding the Four Noble Truths. Buddha's Four Noble Truths are a sort of guideline for understanding how samsara works. It is a type of reality check or glimmer of hope. This shows you that within every life you will endure non-stop suffering, but there is a cause, there is an end, and there is a path that can lead you to the end. In order to banish desires and end suffering to reach enlightenment and nirvana, one must follow the Eightfold Path. Living by this path, or middle way, will bring one into a state of nirvana throughout lifetimes of suffering and learning. Enlightenment will be reached, and all the collected karma and a priori knowledge will be the sum of you, and the point of being a being will be fulfilled.
Plato's view on the purpose of life is a little bit different than Buddha's. He believed that one's ultimate purpose in life should be to pursue happiness, and that in order to do so, we should strive to be moral. He also believed that our soul is split into three parts that work in conjunction to each other. This is what he calls a tripartite soul. According to Plato, the parts of the soul consist of three aspects: appetite, spirit, and reason. He believed that in order to achieve happiness, the three parts of the soul must exist in harmony. Appetite is the part of the soul that deals with bodily cravings such as food, drink, sex, and sleep. The spirit part of the soul deals with a sense of one's self and their ambition. This is what drives people to succeed in life and become famous. Lastly, reason is what keeps the other two in check and ultimately rules the soul as a whole.
Here we have a Venn diagram showing that though Plato and Buddha share some very basic concepts, they have very different interpretations of them. For example, we can infer that Plato believes in reincarnation because he believes in innate knowledge, which is inherited from past lives. Buddha, however, believes that we are reincarnated repeatedly until we achieve enlightenment. We also see that their concept of the purpose of life is quite different. Buddha believes that the purpose of life is to follow the Eightfold Path, while Plato believes that the purpose of life is to achieve happiness, which is done by having all three parts of the tripart soul exist in harmony.
Thanks for watching. We hope that you learned something about the similarities and differences between Plato and Buddha. We're excited.